All right, everybody, we want to
Hi,
welcome you
everyone.
to Heart tonight. And we've got a very, very special guest. He's a good friend of Angela and mine. He's part of the, I guess, I Am teachings he's come across. And it's an amazing journey that you have been on, Peter. And we really appreciate having you on, because the reason I wanted to have you on was because we're living in some very crazy times right now. And it's a time where we need spiritual answers. I don't think the same level of thinking that we've been thinking is going to get us out of this mess. I mean, consciousness, watching the news, Fox News, CNBC. And what I guess I'd like to do, Pete, is for you to tell people, one, how long you've been on this spiritual journey. I would like you to say maybe some of the places you traveled to and why. What was your intention, and how long have you been on this journey? And then we'll get into some of the nuggets. And tonight, guys, we're going to talk about alchemy. We're going to talk about miracles. We're going to talk about a lot of things. This Saint Germain is a very powerful entity that's still around. So Peter, go ahead and just kind of tell us where it all began for you, if you will. Just give us some background and where you ended up traveling to, and maybe some of your discoveries. But go ahead, I'll interject as we go along.
I'll give you the thumbnail sketch. If people are more interested, the first volume of my autobiography is called Search for the Guru.
Did you ever find him?
Yeah, you guess where the last place I thought to look? Inside.
That's very interesting. I love what you tell me, what you found over in India when you went over there looking for the masters. Could you just share couple of the gurus you bumped into?
Yeah, well, let me say, I started out as an atheist. I grew up on the East Coast, a very materialistic, wealthy community, and I was being groomed to be one of those people, but I just didn't see them being happy, saw the commuters catching the train in the morning to go into New York City, and I saw them coming home in the evening looking like they'd been beat up, and I said, that's not what I want to do, so my father was a scientist, and I was raised with the scientific method, so I kind of tested God to see if God was there. And as far as I could tell, none of my prayers were answered, So I couldn't say God did not exist, but I just could not prove that he did exist to my satisfaction, And it wasn't until I actually moved into New York City and started doing hatha yoga. I started doing it for my health, just to get exercise. People said yoga is good for you. So right at the first yoga class, they said, feel the prana, feel the energy going down your leg. And lo and behold, I felt it, and that's the first time I realized there was something beyond the physical plane, that there was energy.
What did it feel like, Peter? What did it
was
feel like?
A tingling, a flow of just a tingling and the sensation of energy flowing in my leg, And after that class, I went right out to the nearest metaphysical bookstore. I said, what's your best book on yoga? And they gave me the biography of Ramakrishna. And of course, he was one of the most famous, yogis in the West from India. And that really kindled my interest. And of course, I kept on with the hatha yoga. And then I heard Ram Dass talk on the radio. And one day I was listening to him, and it's like a beam of light hit me right in the middle of the forehead. And I saw that beam of light came from his guru in northern India that he was inviting me, Ram Dass's guru. So I went over there and had a lot of experiences with him, with Neem Karoli Baba. And I made a number of trips to India. I lived with yogis in the Himalayas. And these yogis could do amazing things. They hardly ate. And they could precipitate objects, like if I wanted to eat, they knew what I wanted to eat. One yogi precipitated a bowl of food. I mean, there was no stove around, no fire, no grocery store, anything. He precipitated, just made out of thin air exactly what I wanted. And
What you were thinking? You were thinking
yeah,
about it?
I wanted a bowl of steamed spinach like I used to get in my garden and some toasted chapatis. And then whoosh, there it was. He handed it to me.
Oh, man. Did that blow you
But
away?
most of these guys did not talk, or they hardly talked, And these people, I've seen pictures of some of them, 30, 40 years later, have not aged, And they can live up in the snow without coats and things like that. So I encountered beings like that, and but none of them really taught me what to do myself. I kept looking for the guru, that like Ram Dass, someone I could sit at his feet and he'd pat me on the head and say good boy and stuff like that, And so I came back to the West, and I was living on Jai Uttal's floor in Berkeley. I mean, it's just a few days, and I was thinking, I don't really want to be here anymore. And one of the yogis I was living with, he was getting ready to leave his body. Like when it's time to die, instead of, dying like we think, they can just consciously leave the body and go to a higher plane. So I was thinking, I'd like to do that. So one morning, this ball of light descended into the room, and I heard this voice, "Go to Muir Woods, I will meet you there." And so I went to Muir Woods. It was raining. I was the only one in the parking lot. So I went for a walk, and I found a tree that was hollow, that had been hit by lightning. And I sat inside the tree to get out of the rain. And I did this Vipassana meditation. That's where you just observe your breath to calm the mind down, the in-breath and the out-breath. And then you ask, you observe who is observing this. You observe your thoughts, and then who is the observer of the thoughts? And you get insight into your true nature, So I did that for a while, and then I made a prayer. I said, before I leave my body, that's really a big step. I should really ask permission, just in case there is somebody up there watching me, I had heard about the masters, the ascended masters, but again, I hadn't seen one. And I didn't really believe there was anybody up there that knew about me. But I said, I better ask anyway. So I named all of the great beings I could think of, Jesus and Saint Germain, Sai Baba, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin. I named the whole list of them. And suddenly a man materialized in a physical body in front of me. Like I was looking at the ground, and suddenly there were 2 feet in front of me. Now, if he had walked up through the forest, I would have heard twigs cracking and stuff like that. It's just, I was looking at the ground, I was looking at the forest floor 1 minute, and the next minute I'm seeing these 2 feet, So I look up, and there's a young guy there wearing jeans. He was about my age. And he said, "Peter, your prayer has been answered." And I went, whoa, this is the first time in my life a prayer has been answered. And he said, he knew what I'd been thinking. He knew what I'd been praying. Oh, he said, "I am the part of the Godhead that has been sent to answer your prayer."
Wow.
And
Was your prayer to die? Was your prayer to die when you said you were praying to leave
the body? Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to leave the body there in Muir Woods, and then my soul would go on to a higher plane.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's in the middle of the story.
Yeah. So, he said, "You can leave your body if you want. In fact, I will help you." But he said, "I want to show you something first." And he took me out of the physical body. I looked back, and there was my human physical body sitting in the tree. sitting on the ground. And I was in a higher body that looked just like the physical body. And he put his arm around me and we went up above the earth, just like that. And we went to this realm where beings existed as balls of light. Now you see that painting on the wall. Where is it? Behind me up there. That's what's called the I am presence, or in India, it would be the Atman. So your higher self is really a ball of light, and the colors around it are the sum total of all the goodness and wisdom you have gained in all your past lifetimes. And so it's like your real aura. Do you know what I mean?
I want to move the camera down just a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
there you go. Thanks.
Yeah. So, can you see me okay now?
Yeah.
You can see the picture
So
too.
it has all the past lives, everything within that field.
Like an aura.
Yeah, so everybody's aura is slightly different depending on what they've done in past lifetimes, So that's kind of the light that you leave the earth with. It's the sum total of your wisdom and your experiences and all the goodness you've accumulated, And in this realm where these balls of light were around, there was a feeling of bliss. You could say this was heaven in a sense. And I could just feel these beings emanating this love and bliss. And I said, this is it. This is where I want to be. And then I started to hear this very disturbing sound, like crying. And it got louder and louder. And I looked down to see where it was coming from. And I saw the earth below me. It was just a small blue ball. And there's just a horrible wailing and sobbing and pleading. And I said, oh, what is that? And he said, that is the sound of humanity. That is the suffering of humanity, of mankind. And he said, we masters hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And my heart just went out. I said, I cannot leave. I want to go back to earth and help out. And he said, you made the right choice. I want you to work with me, but first you need training. And I want you to go to Mount Shasta, and the first person you meet there will tell you what to do next. And the next thing I know, we're back in Muir Woods. I'm back in my physical body. And now he says, I will show you who I really am. And he took a few steps back, and in front of me, he turned into this master wearing a white robe. And that was I recognized him from Unveiled Mysteries that I had read at I tried to read at the Theosophical Society. And then he just vanished, just disappeared,
That was
So I
Saint
got-
Germain. It was Saint
That was
Germain.
Saint Germain, yeah. So I got in my car and drove to Mount Shasta. And while I was having breakfast there, a young guy came up to me and said, you're supposed to meet Pearl. And I said, well, I don't know who she is. But I remember Saint Germain said, do what the first person tells you to do. So this guy just came up to me and said that. So he owned the local health food store. So after I finished eating, I went over there and he let me use the phone, and Pearl said, come right up. So I went up to her house, and she said, I've been expecting you. Well, first of all, when she opened the door, there was this sweet grandmotherly lady who looked kind of like Yoda from Star Wars, and she just emanated goodness, and she said, oh, please come in. I've been expecting you. I said, how could you be expecting me? We've never met before. She said, Saint Germain came to me this morning and told me he was sending you.
Man,
So-
tell you what.
So I sat down in her living room, and she said, what brought you here? And I told her the story of Muir Woods. And she said, well, that was Saint Germain. So, and then she said, he's teaching you. And I said, I don't hear anything. Would you channel to me what he's saying? And she said, I don't channel. That would weaken you. he's working with your higher self, like kind of intermediary self between the physical self and the I am presence. We call it the soul body or higher mental body. And she said, when the time is right, you will know what to do, but you will perceive it as intuition. You know, so if he told you verbally everything to do, again, you would not become a master. You become a master through the effort, you know, and through dealing with real life situations. You know, which kind of bring us to one of the topics tonight, you know, what is the purpose of all this suffering? You know, it's to help us become masters and to develop compassion, you know.
You know, we have quite a few people on here now. So is it okay if I introduce you?
Sure.
Officially? Okay.
Oh, I'd like to make a correction. I'm not a member of the I Am activity. You know, I don't belong to spiritual organizations like that. So.
Right, you don't.
You're just familiar with the teachings.
Yeah. So let me just do, hopefully I'll say these names correctly because some of them are Indian, okay? So Peter Mount Shasta is the best-selling author of, I think, 9 books now, right?
12 books.
12. Oh my gosh, I've got to fix this. Okay, about they're all about awakening to God consciousness. He is a seeker of truth, having spent much time and learned from or studied under many famous gurus of our time, such as Ram Dass, Dean Karoli Baba, Sathya Sai Baba, Anandamaya Ma, and sorry, I know, and other saints. How do you say them? I'm sorry.
Anandamay Ma.
Okay.
And then there was Neem Karoli Baba.
Neem. Okay.
Yeah.
So not DEEM, but in Neem. Okay, I got you.
N-E.
Aha. Okay, I got to fix that. And he has also studied with many Tibetan lamas. He had an experience of meeting Saint Germain, which we just heard, who appeared to him in Muir Woods near San Francisco, who told him to go to Mount Shasta for further training, which we just heard, which he did. This eventually led him to Pearl Doris and the I Am Sanctuary there, where he received his advanced training. He is now in the process of developing ways for greater self-mastery and consciousness for daily life. So.
Okay. Well, again, I was not in the I Am Sanctuary.
Right.
You don't go in there unless you belong to the Saint Germain Foundation.
Right.
And my guidance was not to join that. I got the teachings directly from Pearl and from Saint Germain. Now, Pearl had been assistant to Godfrey Ray King, who started the Saint Germain Foundation. But after Godfrey ascended, she withdrew from the activity, and she and her husband moved to Mount Shasta, and nobody really in town knew who they were for maybe 15, 20 years, you know, until suddenly people just started showing up at her door, you know, saying, we heard you know something that we want to know. So
was she also with the I Am Sanctuary at one point?
Yeah, she ran the I Am Sanctuary in San Francisco.
Okay.
And she was assistant to Godfrey Ray King, who started the Saint Germain Foundation. So she was really at the core, you know, but she felt that they started to become very dogmatic, you know, and that wasn't for her, you know.
So Peter, what is this I am? Is this something that's like in us? Can we tap into it? Because you talk, I know in a lot of your books, you talk about the violet flame, you know, and different things that can help us. And I'm just wondering, what is the violet flame? What is the I am? You know, how can we connect with it? Is it something we connect with, or how can we use it? Because obviously they're tools, right?
Yeah, well, good question. Again, this is not a new teaching. These were known in India for, you know, millennia. And it's probably known in every society where people have evolved. The I am is really how you invoke God into action, you know, but also beyond that, like in India, in Sanskrit, there's an expression, aham brahmasmi. That means I am Brahman. Brahman is God. So that is something you meditate on, you know, meditate on the presence of God within yourself. And after a while, you discover that you are a God, not all of God, but you are a ray of light from the great central sun, and every ray has that basic goodness, has has God consciousness in it,
Does it get stronger as you meditate? Like when you say meditate, are you thinking like 10, 15 minutes of silence, or do you contemplate on something? Do you think about God or Saint Germain or ask a question, or is it more contemplation of getting your mind empty? I know there's all sorts of meditations. You probably have a bunch of them in that last book you said, but could you
Right.
tell us a few different ways to meditate?
Sure. Now, somebody could spend 20 years in a cave in Tibet. In fact, many yogis do that. And that doesn't guarantee enlightenment necessarily, In order to survive in the winter there, you need to develop some very powerful consciousness to generate heat and so on. So, on the other hand, someone might become enlightened just spontaneously like that. There's this story of Eckhart Tolle, he's quite popular now, The Power of Now, and he was chronically depressed. And one night, as he was getting ready for bed, he realized that there was the self that was depressed, and there was a self observing that self that was depressed. And he thought, why don't I identify with the observer self instead of the depressed self? And he did that, and he felt better. And he went to bed, and he woke up in the morning, and he was still identified with the observer,
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it was all quite that easy. He might have done more work after that, but that was a major turning point for him. And that's something we can all realize within ourselves, that, we are not the ego, we're not the mind, we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions, that there is something, a self that's observing those, And in meditation, you can focus on that, and gradually you'll identify more with that self. And it's not really a question of time. I mean, somebody might suddenly have that awareness almost spontaneously, whereas others might take many, many years, And sometimes it's something, an awareness you realize for a time, maybe even 5 seconds, and then you're out of it. Then it might be a month for you to realize it again. But gradually you go in and out of that. And one of the benefits of these troubling times we're in is everybody is looking sort of for a way out, a way out of the suffering and the anxiety, So through meditation, you can begin to find that. You find that anchor within yourself, which I'll call the I am presence, So there's a simple method Saint Germain gives in Unveiled Mysteries. It's in the first chapter. And that is to meditate on the light in the center of your being. Now, some people say, well, I don't see the light. A lady called me from Korea. She said, I've been doing that meditation that you gave me for the past year, and I haven't seen the light.
Mhm.
And she was looking for a light, like when you turn on a flashlight or a bulb or a candle. She was looking for a bright light like that. It's a very subtle light. It gets brighter, but it's more of a feeling. And but that light can manifest outwardly also. Like the first time I met Pearl, she said, turn your attention inward and say, I am the living light. And when I did that, I saw light in the room, like someone had turned on a lamp, And she said, why are you shocked? And I said, I saw the light, that it's real. It's not a figure of speech. People say, well, have you seen the light? Have you seen the truth about something? But as you meditate on that, you become aware of that presence, and don't be disappointed if you don't actually see a lamp or a glowing, bright glowing light or a sun. It's more a feeling, a presence there. It's also sometimes easier for people to feel love, feel the love in your heart, in the center of your being. That's a lot easier for some people, but they talk about it like it's a light, whether it's light, more light or more love, or just the sensation of the presence there. And Saint Germain says, just imagine, like imagination is a very powerful tool. You can create with imagination. So imagine there is a sun in the center of your chest, and it's getting brighter and brighter. And your body, it seems to be physical, but actually scientists will tell you it's mostly empty space. And the, 1/10% that is not empty space is energy. And so imagine that light filling your body and radiating out into the room, out into space.
I like the picture behind you, Peter, makes me
exactly.
think. Yeah.
Imagine that I am presence comes down and you become the presence. So you can say, I am the presence of God. Now, you don't tell this to somebody else. You don't say it with your ego. It's something, just try to feel,
Yeah.
Right. See, people have misused the I am teachings, like they'll meditate on, I am the presence of Saint Germain. Then they'll actually feel Saint Germain in their body, and then they think they are the reincarnation of Saint Germain. They go around telling everyone that they're Saint Germain. Well, there's last week 3 people in Mount Shasta telling people they were Saint Germain.
No.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, Peter, so many people, have allowed religion, to ruin them. They come out of religion, they go victim, they don't want anything to do with God. But, here you are. I think it's an amazing miracle that you were an atheist and somehow you found the spirit of truth through, crying out. I guess you were crying out. Would you say you were crying out for truth, that you wanted truth, that you wanted to know God? Is that where it all began?
Sure. Yeah, well, I wanted to know if there was a God. And then once I realized there was, how do I make more contact? What does God look like? So on, like that, So you asked about other ways to contact God, is again, like that sincerity of just, God, I know you're there, or I hope you're there. I want to contact you. God is aware of your every thought. God has very good hearing. And, you could not take a breath without God. That is God breathing in you,
Hey, Peter, sometimes when I feel like I'm, I don't know, in a bad place, maybe on a particular day or something, and so I'll feel like I really, really, really need a little bit of help. So I'll call upon, Sai Baba, Paramahansa Yogananda, Saint Germain, Padre Pio, whoever I think of. But then I feel guilty because I feel like I'm, Archangel Michael, maybe even, you never know. But then I feel guilty, like I'm bothering them. Like, I'm sure they have way more important things to take care of right now, especially in all this crazy world we're living in. And I feel bad all of a sudden. And this happens over and over.
Oh, don't feel bad. That's why they're here, and they have assistants also, they have angel helpers and things like that who they can send to help you,
Because
and also they can exist in many bodies simultaneously.
Well, that's good to know.
That's how, like, Jesus could appear to you where you are, but also be appearing in 1,000 other places around the earth at the same time,
Yeah, now Satan can't do that, right? Because he's not given that authority.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, well, I'm not an authority on him,
Okay, I don't blame you.
So can you?
The thing is, there are many demonic beings, I don't like to say that there is one, You know what I mean? But there
Right.
are many, and that's why you should avoid, for the most part, avoid psychics and channels, because these dark beings may give you a false message to lead you astray,
Yeah.
I have to say that, alcohol is one of the things that opens people up to demonic forces, That doesn't mean you can't have a glass of wine with friends or something, but people who are addicted to it or who drink to get drunk, that is very dangerous,
Yeah.
And the same with any drug that is used habitually or to blot out, normal reality can be very dangerous, So, I mean, there is a place for those substances. God grew all these things on the earth for a reason, but they have their place and should not be abused,
It's so easy to abuse them, Peter, like I remember Dan and I, we would work really hard on a job, and then we go to a nice restaurant after because we're exhausted, we're fried, and my body's hurting pretty good. So I'm like, my answer is like, have a glass of wine. Always, I would have a glass of wine. And then I had this neighbor across the street, and she liked to drink a lot more than me. But then I'd have a drink, and then I'd have another drink. And then maybe 2 days later, I'd have another drink with her, and then maybe another. And then I'll tell you what, I started getting moody. Dan started pointing out that I'm really moody. And it would even last for a week just from that. And no more than that, but then I'm off for a week. Can you believe that? Man,
Oh, yeah.
I decided I'm quitting. I just quit. And now I don't know why I'm more even keel. My moods are not at all swingy. I'm just pretty solid for the most part. Would you think that's about right, Dan?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
glad I
Peter,
quit.
do you use the I am? I mean, I believe in abundance and prosperity, and can you use it for that too? Is it
Sure,
when
you
you say it's
can.
an affirmation, the I am, prosperity or
I
whatever?
was going to finish the previous question. You asked me about methods of meditation.
Yeah.
Which I give 12 of them in my latest book, I Am the Key to Mastery.
I got to get that. That looks really
Looks
good.
really good.
Yeah, and but another very powerful one that's practiced in Tibet and in India is this Vipassana. Now, the first part of Vipassana is where you just learn to still the mind, to relax, to calm down, and you just observe the in-breath and the out-breath. It's very, very simple. It's like a mantra. It's going all the time. You can close your eyes or you can keep them just like half open, looking down. You sit up straight, hands on your knees or in your lap, and try to put the tip of your tongue against the roof of your mouth. This kind of completes the energy circuit. And you just observe the breathing, the in-breath and the out-breath, the rise and fall of your chest. And after a while, a thought will come up, like nothing's happening. And then just label that thought and go back to the breath. Or like, my knee hurts. Well, that's a thought. Come back to the breath. I hear a dog barking outside. That's a thought. Back to the breath. So you keep doing that. And this trains the mind to be still. You see, it's like when you get a puppy, the puppy wants to go in every direction, and you keep pulling gently on the leash. And after a while, the puppy learns to walk by your heel,
Yes.
And then it thinks it's doing what it wants to do. So your mind is the same way. Your mind is like that little puppy. It wants to go this way and that way, but you train it to be still, just focus on the breath and observe the thoughts and label them, and then let the thoughts go. And then you ask, who is doing this? Who is the observer? And you become aware that there is a consciousness beyond the mundane consciousness. There is an awareness that is aware of the human self and of the mind, but it is separate from it. And as you become more identified with that self, then you start to have experiencing what it is. Now, the Buddhists would not call it God, they maybe call it Buddha mind, expanded awareness, unlimited consciousness. Or it's the mind of the I am presence, divine mind. And then in that consciousness, you can say, I am, whatever quality you want to manifest. See, this is calling God into action. This is mastery. Mastery is really beyond enlightenment. You can achieve enlightenment in a cave and be in the oneness and experience bliss, but you may not be able to deal with the world. Now, a master has to be able to go into society and work with people. A master has to be able to, go into an airport or a bar or a school or anywhere, and or even counsel people in relationship how to improve their lives. Now, a yogi in a cave may be immersed in the higher self, but still not understand how to work with people in daily life,
Makes sense.
Like I saw, yogis in India like that,
Yeah.
So
And
then
women
you
come
say,
too.
I am being shown how to deal with this situation. I am being shown how to improve my relationship. I am manifesting the abundance which I require to do God's work, But it's more of an allowing. It's not I am. That's the ego and the willpower, But when it's more of a surrender and see what God wants you to manifest. I am being shown what God wants me to manifest, So.
You have a book on that too, don't you, Peter, on the I
Oh,
am?
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a really
I've
good
got a
one. I
number of
really liked it.
books. Number
you
of
also-
books. And
And you
how
have
to-
another one on the sayings of Jesus or something like that. That was
Yeah,
a
I don't know
fabulous
if
book.
have it here.
It's what they don't teach you in church. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I want to open it up. If anybody's got some questions, I had a few more, but I know some people out there. I know Ron wanted me to ask you how you write all these books. Ron asked me, he starts some books and he just can't get them finished. And he's got a lot of books, a lot of ideas, but he wants to know how you have completed 12 books.
Yeah, and I said to him,
Well,
Peter works hard on these books all the time. Anyway,
well, there's a difference between, my mind thinks of a lot of books that I would potentially like to write. And I might sit down and write a paragraph or a page, even 2 pages. And then the next day I sit down and there's no energy to continue, Then there's other books like, all my other books actually that have been published, the energy to do it, it was like the master had his finger in my back, like every morning I could not wait to start writing, and I would sit down and they would just flow, So those are the books that were meant to be, that I almost couldn't not write them,
Do you think you invoked the spirit to write them? Were you saying, God, I want to put all this together and put it out?
No, I wasn't doing that at all. It was just my destiny. I was shown when I was in college, I was given a dream that showed me I was supposed to be a writer.
no kidding.
I didn't want to do that. So I was saying, no, I don't want that. And, but then it just happened. Actually, I didn't start writing seriously until 2010.
Wow.
So this is 2022, that's 12 years. No, excuse me, is that right? No, that's not right. 2000, how many years here?
11, right?
2000.
21.
2010, yeah, and you add 12 years, that's 22. So, I started my autobiography in 2010, and or it was published in 2010. So, these other books have just like I say, there's no way I could not write them.
Well, you know what, Peter, how many years would you say you spent in India, total time if you added it all up?
Maybe 3 years. I don't know. Two. Let's say 2 years.
2 years.
But
And
there were
it
many
definitely had a,
trips. You know, in the old days, you could only get a 3-month visa, and then you could extend it to 6 months and stuff.
got it. What would you say that had the most impact on your life than anything else, or what would you say has been the biggest
Well,
impact?
going to India and then meeting Saint Germain,
Yeah,
and then of
sure.
course meeting Pearl on the human plane, meeting Pearl.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then, what is it, in 2000, I don't even have it here, 2077, I mean, 1977, we're not 2077 yet. 1977, 10 masters appeared to me every day for 10 days, and they gave me a series of discourses. And that was probably one of the most altering experiences, because, you know, they gave me these discourses, and that really showed me the difference between when a master gives a book and what's normally called channeling. I did not sit down and say, I'm going to channel a book, you know. I've never done that. But when they appear in the room, the energy was so intense, I felt like I was ascending.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've never done that since then. They just wanted to show me what the real thing was, you know.
So did you just write like crazy when they were with you?
Oh yeah, as fast as I could write. I've never written.
Wow.
Was that in Mount Shasta?
No, that was strangely enough in New York, not New York City, but out in the country.
How did you get the name? I know you had to have changed your last name. So how
I was, you know, it's funny. Almost all the people I was with in India with Neem Karoli Baba were given Indian names. You know, Ram Das and Krishna Das and Jai Gopal and all those kind of things like that. And I didn't want another name, and I didn't get one. And when I came back, I was camping out on Mount Shasta. That was in 72. I've been fasting for 5 days. And I woke up one morning and there was somebody talking to me. I couldn't see them. It was just getting light. The sun hadn't come up yet. And I looked around and I couldn't see anyone, but whoever it was knew everything about me, you know, past, present, and future. And he told me what was going to come, what I was going to do for the next year. And I didn't like anything he said. Like, I had a beautiful farm near Woodstock, New York, and he said, you're going to sell that and move to Mount Shasta. Well, Mount Shasta was a logging town then, you know, it was not a spiritual community the way you think of. And then he said I was going back to India to see Sai Baba, and I didn't want to go back to India because I'd had health challenges. And, you know, and the last thing he said was, change your name to the name of the mountain. And I said, Mount Shasta? He said, yes. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And he said, I argued with him. I said, I won't do that. I don't like that name. And he said, finally, you can, and you know, he said, well, you will. And I said, no, I won't. And he said, we shall see.
Yeah.
Like a parent, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you know, later I started writing a little booklet. And I thought, you know what, I'll use Mount Shasta as a pen name, but I had no plans to live here. And it wasn't for another year that I really came back to live here. By then, people had read that booklet and they called me Peter Mount Shasta. And then I was told to make it legal, you know. So he had a reason for that, you know, and it's been a little difficult on me because people think I'm on an ego trip, but, you know, that's their problem, so.
It's all right. You know, we were just there, as you know.
Yeah.
And we missed you. We don't
Yeah, sorry.
feeling up to par, but
Yeah.
you know, I got to tell you, Peter, you know, I've been out there a few times before, but this time I was out there, I really felt the energy of that place. It felt like I was on another planet. me and Angela looked around and I said, is this Earth? I mean, you talked about, nonlinear castles up on the mountain, but we were just sitting by the water heads, where that water comes out of the ground that takes 50 years to get to the top. We drank right out of there. And everywhere we went, it was like the nicest people in the world. They treated us nice. They gave us tours. They said, this is a place they call the Fairy River in the middle of the woods. And people just took us around like tour guides. And everywhere we went, the restaurants, people sat down, talked to us, told us where their favorite spiritual place was. It was the best trip we ever had.
Sure.
Well, until the time we saw you out there, of course.
I'm so glad. That's nice.
Seeing who's on there with us.
Okay.
Cool.
But anyway, it was really a cool feeling. We were even I wouldn't.
Okay, I'm trying to get rid of it.
But anyway, we really enjoyed it. And boy, we just felt like we even wanted to move out there. Really strong
Yeah.
feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's pretty affordable. And can you see us okay?
Yeah, is that all right? You want me to
Yep,
sit
Yeah.
back?
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, you're great.
But anyway, it's a very spiritual place. And I know there's people coming and going all the time, masters out there. I don't know why. Do you know any reason why they'd be attracted to that place? Mount Shasta, why the people would come? Is there a certain energy coming from that mountain or what?
Well, some people are really called by the masters, for their growth. So the masters can work with them more intensely. Other people are just here, they want to get out of the city, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just such really good people there, There's still a lot of good in California, I gotta say. It might be a scary place right now in a lot of areas, but I thought Mount Shasta was superb and incredible, and the people are incredible. It doesn't matter where you go. It's like what's so neat about it is no one has like I didn't sense like a bunch of ego anywhere I went. Anyone you spoke with, no matter what, they just didn't have
They
that
were down to
ego.
earth. They really were. They were offered us everything they had,
Yeah.
Right.
And not in any ego discussion of any kind. I don't know. It's quite
Mhm.
interesting.
Mm.
Like most people here where I live now in Idaho, they're really reserved. They don't want to, open up. They don't really want to know you. I don't know. They're just very private people. And it's just such a shocking difference there in California. And, no one had an I'm better than you attitude anywhere.
Mm.
And it was just really neat.
Oh,
I love Mount Shasta. I really do.
So do you think we can create paradise now?
well, we can work on it. The real paradise, you work on inside,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to
Yeah.
that.
And your books are kind of teaching tools, aren't they? I mean, I've read several of your books, but that one that you wrote, I forget which one it was, but it talked about all the spiritual experiences you had in
Oh,
India.
yeah.
Blew me away with the dog, all that stuff, the manifestation of food, so many things. It just went on and on. It was like every page was a spiritual experience.
Wow.
It blew me away.
Yeah.
I
me
mean, that
too.
somebody could have all those experiences. It's
Yeah.
really cool that you were ready at that time. And like you said, you didn't really have to come back, did you, Peter, when you were up there?
no, it was a choice I made, and I've been offered a chance to leave at least a couple of other times. And I always say, as long as I can help people by staying here, I will stay,
What do you think? What do you think we need right now, Peter? Besides getting to know ourself, our real self, not our ego self, but besides getting to know ourselves.
Well, what was the title of the talk this evening? It was, how do we survive?
Yes, right.
in
The chaos.
The chaos, troubling times, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are struggling now. It started, I think, during the lockdown when people were cut off from each other.
Yeah.
And somehow that feeling has continued somehow, of people feeling separated from each other. People want family. They want to be close with other people, and somehow they feel separated, and sort of alienated, and not trusting the government or the news and so on. So there are a lot of people in a state of fear, And it's important to work with that, not give into it, because that doesn't help solve anything. In fact, it makes it worse. And that's where the I am comes in. You can, in meditation, you can say, oh, I'm feeling fear and anxiety about the world. I need to let go of that. And, meditate and say, I am the presence of God. God is happy. God feels love. I want to feel that. So I am the loving presence of God. I am the living presence of God establishing peace on earth, or just I am peace on earth. I am happy. I call on the happiness of God to come in and through me, and that's doing more good for the world than, moaning and wailing and stuff,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really
Even
good.
to sit in a cafe, like I have a video on YouTube, I'm sitting in the cafe in town here, and I do this silently, not outwardly, but I am the presence of God blessing everyone in this cafe, And then someone will just turn and come up to me and start talking, or may I sit down and talk? Yeah. So.
That's really great. So would you say that when you say that, you more feel it, don't you? When you're saying, I am the peace, that needs to spread around the earth. You
try to feel it in your heart, rather than the willpower, So.
Yeah, try to open our hearts, right? While we're saying that.
Yeah.
So we're feeling that the best we can.
Peter, I'm glad these tools, go ahead. Did you read?
No, okay.
I'm just going to say, I'm glad these tools are out there, because like I said, I watch a lot of people, they're in their mind and they can't get out. It's like, it just keeps cycling. They watch the news, they turn off the news, they turn it back on, or they go on Facebook and there's the news, and it's nothing but bad news. And I think, like you said, at some point, we've got to separate that mind from the observer mind and stay in the observer mind and become more of an observer, and
realizing that we're not our thoughts.
Yes.
More and more.
Yeah.
Getting to know our real self, because like you said, Peter, we're not our thoughts. So if we can, for those of us who don't have that ability to observe our thoughts, just Dan's already got it going on all the time, right? But for those of us who don't, just taking the time to just kind of imagine yourself kind of coming out of your body, not that you are, but imagine that you are, and looking down at yourself saying, oh, what's going on there? And what's she thinking? And oh yeah, well, that's right, I'm not my thoughts. And well, that really doesn't have any power over me anyway. And I don't know, we just start thinking it through when you're out of it. You know how whenever you're having a hard time, you go on a trip and you just get away, go on a drive somewhere. I don't know, do something, go down by the river and just think, clear the water, clear the mind, right? And just get away. And I don't know, to me, that's kind of like doing that, just getting out of yourself. And I don't know, it's just a practice, just to, whatever chance you get, just say, I'm just going to be the observer right now. I'm going to observe myself. And I don't know, then realizing that I'm not that ego self who thinks she's got to get it all done and I've got to do it perfectly, or it won't be good enough and people won't love me, and all these kind of things, right? No, I'm not that. That's a thought. I am always loved. And I don't know, just get out of that mind. And it's just, I don't know, the more we do it, take those little practices like that, the more we take the time to say the I ams, stop, breathe, let the mind just be what it is, just the mind. It's not me, who I am. The more we do that, the more we're going to do it all the time. And I don't know, I'm starting to get the hang of it. It's a little bit of a fight because my ego mind seems to keep wanting to run the show, but I'm starting to get a handle on it and realizing that, no, you don't run the show here. It's starting to get a little bit fun, just a little bit.
And Peter, you said something that's really, really true and profound. But you said that when you were out there, somebody knew your thoughts, somebody knew everything about you. You could feel the presence. Me and Angela had a couple of incidences where that happened. One was this house we live in. We were living in just a tract home down in the city. And Angela started doing the affirmations, the I am affirmations.
Yeah, we needed to buy a house because we've been renting for a while since we moved from Colorado to
And-
hear, but it was time.
Yeah, and the water was really, really bad. Angela didn't even want to get in it. You could smell the chlorine.
Taking back.
And it was really bad. And we thought, and Angela's like, I want a house on the river, detached garage, fireplace. And I'm going,
You know, it
you
wasn't,
know, like
it was so much more humble than that.
it was, but no, it was humble. But I'm going, wow, you know, it seemed like a lot to ask for. And we wanted the back of our house to feel like the outside was inside, like we were, you know, all this stuff. Now, what happened was something was listening to every word, every single word. And it was affirmed, it was felt, it was believed. And so the next thing you know, we got a phone call, you know, because, you know, you look for those little signs. And it was Angela's sister. And Angela's sister says, well, I found a house on Craigslist. And I thought, two houses on Craigslist.
Like
And
nobody finds house on Craigslist.
yes, I thought, who puts a house on Craigslist? So I went on Craigslist, and here's this house on a river. I didn't know it was the Boise River. And I asked the lady, I said, is that house on the river? She goes, yes. I said, is it for sale? Because, you know, Craigslist has a lot of bad deals.
Yeah.
So we came out here. The back is glass facing a huge river, the Boise River, trees, mountain views, and beauty. And then to the right, there's nothing. And on and on. So here it is.
Detached garage, well and septic, wood stove, everything I asked for. I had reasons for all those things. You know, they were humble reasons.
Yes.
And plus it's what I've been used to and the way I lived in my life before in the mountains. And so I wanted some of that back. It's natural. I don't want bad water to go in my body or on my body. And that not having a detached garage was causing us to have fumes in the house sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Ray out there because he's a wood finisher. So I had reasons for all of it. And I feel God's nature when I look I see the beauty outside and I feel close to God. So I so bad wanted to feel like the outside was in. There was, you know, real special reasons why I wanted each of these things. And in crazy times, it's good to have a wood stove, to have your own well. So anyway, God gave me everything and more.
Right.
So anyway, he heard every single word that I said in
then
detail.
I got kicked out of my shop. So we ended up building a shop on the back side of the house, big shop. While they built a house, they built a glass house that we dreamed of. So the next thing you know, we had a house on the river, kind of a chapel, little prayer house. It's solid glass right on the river, and a shop where we work out of. And it couldn't be better. We work out of the house 2 days and we're home the rest of the week. But I'll tell you what, Peter, that's why I mentioned the abundance, because it wasn't long ago we were doing the same thing. We were taking a piece of paper and we're saying our vehicles are paid off. You know what I mean? We're going, our truck's paid off. And we did that for how long?
I don't know.
It wasn't long. But you know
A
what?
year, maybe a
A
year.
miracle happened and they're paid off. 2 brand new vehicles. I mean, mine's 5 years old, but still it's like new, but
Great.
paid off. And it's like, wow. And so we don't do it enough. We still don't do it enough. You know what I mean? But our next affirmation, our next feeling and believing is that our house is paid off. And we don't know
We've been
how.
believing that one for a while.
And we never knew how our vehicles were going to get paid off. It actually came out of meditation. This house, the same thing. It showed up, and like I said, like you said, Peter, something knows and hears everything. Like you said, it's closer than our breath.
Yeah, I know that Peter, you were mentioning that you feel like you try to be led by God on what you're asking for. Like, you know, when you do your I ams, because it's kind of like I ams, right? But you be led by the Holy Spirit. I don't know. I always feel like if you have a worthy reason for asking what it is that you need, and it's not just for your selfish self, but it's for everyone, and you have a good reason, that God will do it if it's according to his will. And you know, it's right, you're right in the asking of it, and with the right heart, that you'll have it. It says that in the Bible. So is that your opinion too?
Well, what I found out when I first found the I Am teachings, I saw I could create lots of things that I wanted. But then I found out later that wasn't God's plan. You know, like I said, I want to live in a cabin by a stream in a hidden valley, you know, in nature with a garden. And gee, about a week later, someone walked into where I was working and offered that to me. I went down to look at it. It was about a half-hour drive from Mount Shasta. You had to go up a dirt road. It was a little hidden valley that nobody knew about. And here was this beautiful cabin by a stream with a garden, and the lady didn't want any rent money. You know, it was absolutely idyllic. But after I lived there about 2 weeks, I started feeling I'm supposed to be in Mount Shasta. You know, I'm not supposed to be living all alone out here in this hidden valley, you know? So it would have been better if, well, I guess I was supposed to learn about the power of the I am, you know, but there's the human, you know, using of the I am, and then there's the divine, you know, so would have been better if I had said, I am the presence of God bringing me the perfect place to live.
Yeah, for the betterment of everyone, right?
Turned out to be an apartment in the town of Mount Shasta, right down the street from Pearl, because I was supposed to work with her on almost a daily basis. So, you know, just to be a 5-minute walk from, or more like 3-minute walk from her house was perfect. But if I'd lived in this hidden valley out there, you know, it would have been inconvenient, you know, that wasn't the plan. So, you know, it's the I am God's divine plan made manifest now, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
every
I
morning
like that.
when I wake up, I say, I am the great divine director of this day. That means God is directing my life this day. It's not Peter's will, it's thy will, you know.
Amen, brother.
Yes, yes, I
Amen.
love that.
I do
I
too.
want to just ask, has anybody
Even
wants?
Jesus said that, you know, thy will be done, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. He did.
I just want to ask anybody, Peter, if anybody wants to say anything,
Sure.
say hi or anything to Peter. And I know Ron's there, Linda's there, and Carrie's there.
Linda
If
James.
anybody wants to say anything, if not, I'm gonna just talk about where we can get Peter's books and that sort of thing. I don't think we have anybody locked, do we? Where they
No, we
can't get on.
don't. Can you, Carrie Kate, can you just let us know that you can speak if you needed to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you able to speak if you needed to? Yeah. Shake your head.
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right. Just want to make sure. All right.
I just wanted to thank him. It was lovely. It just wonderful to hear him
Thank
speak.
you, Carrie. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I know I know that this feels like it's not Christian in some ways, and some people that come on here will feel like, oh boy, this is way out there. But you know, the truth is that I don't know. I think that I've been kind of blinded, realizing that well, not realizing that there's a lot going on out here that I'm not aware of. And Dan and I've had some very direct experiences that we did not try to arrange, nor did we know anything about with regard to Saint Germain, believe it or not. And then, well, we've had the smell and everything. It's crazy, guys, what we have experienced. Driving down the road and seeing this huge purple beyond purple, like I've never seen purple in the sky in my lifetime. And right there is Saint Germain in the clouds clearly. And then he's in the next picture and the next picture, and there's angels and as well. And it's like, what is going on here? I mean, we've had these crazy experiences. The
Yeah.
cigar smoke,
been in our-
smell, and all of that. And I instantly knew it's Saint Germain. I knew absolutely that it was. So I researched trying to find out about Saint Germain, and maybe he did he do cigars, you know? And in a more recent lifetime, he actually was seen in 1970s sometime with a cigar, and I knew it. It's like, no, that was Saint Germain. So we have visitations, and I don't know, it's touching to know that God uses angels. I think all my lifetime I believed in angels, but I didn't really quite imagine what they did. I think I felt like they were just flitting about, pretty little things to, I don't know, sprinkle some dust on, I don't know, protect me, but not like I can call upon them really like Jesus did, and they're going to be there. I didn't see the masters either. I didn't suspect that there would really be people who have, because I didn't believe in prior lifetime. I never believed that there were more than one life. I always thought that there was only one life. When I got a handle on that, because of these near-death experiences that I studied all these different near-death experiences, I realized, okay, this is real. these people are real. They know what's going on. You go up to heaven in these near-death experiences, and they know all about you, and they're excited to talk to you about the next move there. And then you feel like the Lord's saying, no, 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 it's not time for that right now. And we got to move along. And then they can't talk to you, but you can't hug even sometimes. There's all these stories, but you realize that no, everybody's connected, whether there or here. And I'm sure of that now. So now, and then when you realize in the Christian realm that when we receive the Holy Spirit, which is very Christian, that's something going on the inside of you that's supposed to be with you at all times. So how unchristian is it to say that the I am presence is in me at all times? I'm never separate. If the Holy Spirit comes in, because we invited it, we're never separate. That's part of the Godhead, and we're never separate from God. So that at least is very Christian. So this is not so far-fetched. If you listen to as many stories as Dan and I have about near-death experiences, and you see God interacting with people and trying to help them get back on track and help them realize what's really going on instead of what we've been brainwashed to believe how God is. I used to think God was a mean, mad God, always mad at all of us all the time, never could do enough. And I don't see that. That's not the God I've come to know personally in my life and what I've been through, horrendous things. And he's been there for me. And so I know that it's not as we've been taught. So I'm opening myself up, and then I met Peter. I can't remember how that happened, but it's been a really delight for me.
You see, the church has distorted a lot of things. Jesus never said start a church,
He didn't.
The religion was mostly, Christianity was the work of Paul, initially. And most of the Gospels were not written till the first one, 40 years after Jesus' death, by people who never knew him. And Jesus never said you were born a sinner. That was St. Augustine who said that. So all these other people way after Jesus put these doctrines in there that Jesus didn't say. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. You must come as a little child, and these children are without sin. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So
I do. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how we met, because we started connecting with all kinds of people, Peter. Just before we met you, one of her relatives, who was it?
Aunt Holly.
Aunt Holly. You met Holly, Peter, down there in Mount Shasta. But I didn't even know her one day. And I said, yeah, me and Angela, we just wrote a book called, what was it?
Surrender or
no, the Divine Order of Alchemy, the Ancient Secret to Union with God. And she says, oh, you channeled Saint Germain. And I was like,
why would she even say that?
Yeah. And I was like, who's Saint Germain? And then she goes, blah, blah, blah. And then
she just does the first person that said that word, Saint Germain. We're like, who's that?
So I was in, yeah. And then
oh, wow. Did things that open up to us after that? It was crazy.
Then I was in Arizona, and some guy said, he's got some painting for me. And I said, what is that painting? And he said, that's Saint Germain in his etheric body. And he was kind of like, after you become a Mason, I'll give you a copy. He gave me a copy that there was only 2 of. And then we saw the cloud, and then we saw you. And then we saw another
you told
lady.
Us that story about meeting Saint Germain. We're like, what? It's like.
So anyway, yeah. So we've had Peter on the show before, a long time ago. We've had you on X-Zone Radio. We had you on Rick Farron's show. We've had you, and we've had a relationship since. And it's really cool. It's like, that's how this Saint Germain is interacting in our life. And it's the strangest thing. And I never dreamed, like Angela said one day, where I was driving into town and all the clouds were purple. So I took my camera and I just started snapping pictures, because I never saw purple clouds. It was the freakiest thing. And when I got home, I blew them up, and there was Saint Germain. And it was funny, because the back of your book, one of your books, there was a picture of Saint Germain, and it was the same picture that was in the cloud. And I got a picture of it. And we've had weird stuff, like my daughter, I think I told you guys one time, Ireland. I don't know if you saw the picture, Peter, but we were out by the chimney, and I was filming the chimney, the fireplace, and my daughter was talking about going through the fire of life. She was on the phone, and I was filming the chimney. And this was a weird one. I can't explain it. But anyway, I stopped filming, and I said, I'm sorry, Ireland. I'm sorry you're going through all this stuff. Well, when I looked at my film, my little video I had, it was less than a minute. I just pushed it. The last frame was my daughter. And I think you might have seen it, Peter, but she's in the flame like this.
Yeah.
She got a better picture of it because she stopped it just a one frame before, and there's her full on. There she is, right in the flame.
I don't know
It's
how it
purely
happened.
her. And it's like, what in the heck happened? But when I realized that the elements are very real, and people have found the little ice cubes they've taken out of a very damaged pond, and checked them out, and there was a lady screaming in this one cube, and they're like, what the heck, and found out that somebody had been murdered in there, so they drained the pond, and sure enough, there's a body down in there. Anyway, all these different things about that the elements actually they hold things, and so that's very interesting to me. But I was going to say, Peter, I think it's these experiences that you had, like, what was the very first one that kind of got you thinking about that? Okay, there've got to be a Senate, there's got to be somebody listening to me. Because, like, for example, when you went down there and you saw, I don't know, Sai Baba or whatever, those guys down there, Ram Dass and all of that. And you like have the experience where you had cried out, and you were laying in somewhere in your sleeping bag, I guess it was, and some dog, one of those dogs there that aren't dogs, like they are here, they're like rats or something, and it's all snuggled up to you, and it's foamy, their foamy mouth, yucky, smelly breath.
Could you tell us about that?
And you wake up, and all of a sudden this dog is snuggled up to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, get away from me, you're hitting it. And then was it Sai Baba said, hey, that was me, you were hitting me, that was me, right?
Yeah, well, I was in India at Sai Baba's ashram. It's before they had rooms for everybody to stay. You would just sleep out on the ground, there was a roof called a shed, but no walls. And they said, sleep with a stick next to you, because dogs will come in at night, try to steal your food, So one night I woke up, and there was this mangy dog lying right against me, just had open wounds on his body, and the hair was falling out. But the thing is, my body was filled with light, and I was in a state of absolute bliss, But I was looking down at these two eyes, and I realized later they were Sai Baba's eyes, not normal dog eyes, But the rest of the body was this mangy dog. So, after a while, my human mind kicked in, and I went, oh, here's one of these dogs that I'm supposed to chase,
Yeah.
So I picked up my stick, and I raised the stick over my head, and the dog jumped up, and it looked at me like that, and then it ran away. Well, the next day I was thinking, that was the strangest experience. How could that dog fill my body with light? And then this person came by and told me this story about a woman there in India who made sweets to take to Sai Baba, and she put them on the windowsill to cool, and a big dog came along and ate them. And she beat the dog with a stick. And the next day she went to see Sai Baba, and Baba came by, and she said, oh, Baba, I made these sweets yesterday. And he said, yes, and when I ate them, why did you beat me? And he pulled up his robe, and he was black and blue, so he had come and eaten them in the form of the dog, So that story showed me again that dog that had filled my body with light was actually Sai Baba, that these masters can come in any form,
Yeah, just like Jesus. I mean, when they met Jesus on the road to Emmaus after he had died, they did not recognize him. They even sat down at the table after they got home with him, and they still didn't recognize him until he broke the bread, and then all of a sudden their spiritual eyes were open, and they understood that it was Jesus. But I bet he still didn't look like Jesus, and even when at that one place at the rock where he was sitting on, Mary didn't recognize him. And then when he finally said the name Mary, then she says, it's Master. And then she knew, but again, he came probably in a different form. She did not recognize him. She thought he was the gardener, so I don't know. This is interesting that you can come as a master in different forms, at will. Again, we think that this is our one life, and when we all die, we either go to a waiting place or we go to heaven or somewhere, but we don't live more than one life, and we don't become masters, and there are no such thing as masters. That's how we've all been trained. That's pagan. That's not true. That's false. But I don't know, these personal experiences that you had, they were real to you, Peter. And Dan and I've had some experiences ourselves. It's like, what's going on here? If things are not exactly as they appear, and not as the way we've been taught, and I'm willing to see what else there might be going on here. And what about these near-death experiences and stuff?
Has it been hard to stay humble, Peter? Through, the fact that you've
Yeah.
actually seen
No,
ascended
because
masters?
life has a way of crushing the ego,
Yeah.
and if you're a student of the masters, they make sure that happens,
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Well, Peter, I'll tell you, it's
I
been,
just like to mention something about
Yeah.
Jesus. When I went to India, I was looking for a guru, and I thought that Ram Dass's guru, I wanted him to be my guru too. And all these other Westerners were there, putting him in the role of guru. And one day I went up to him, I felt, this guy is not my guru for some reason, So I went up to him and I said, okay, who is my guru? He started shouting at me, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. I thought he was swearing at me, but what he meant was Jesus is your guru,
Yeah. Yeah. So, because
I felt very close to Jesus during that time, and I still do,
yeah, didn't he get frustrated with you even and said, I am not your master one time? Seemed like he had said that to you. And anyway, then you wanted to know, well, who is my
No,
master?
he didn't say that, but
Oh, you got that. Okay.
yeah, he just said Jesus is your
Jesus
guru.
Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, Peter, that a lot of, when you were in India, I think I remember in one of your books, a lot of the gurus were telling you to go back home.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting, go back home, go into your
Yeah, because
silence.
they weren't the master, Well, anyways, and plus Peter was trying to find it in a man, and right? Isn't that kind of like what?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you find it within yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen Jesus at any point?
Oh, yes.
It just
Yes.
in your mind's eye or manifested?
Well, my mind's eye, there was one time when I think it was actually him in a physical body, but actually there were a couple of times, but I'm not totally sure of it. So,
Hey, Peter, when I was down there in Mount Shasta, I got up early in the morning one day when we were there a few weeks ago, and there's this old woman who just was so crazy out of place. What she was wearing and everything was very odd. And I don't know, then my spirit knew that she might not really be a person. She might really
Like an
be
entity.
like somebody, I don't know, an angel maybe, or just, I don't know. Have you guys, have you ever seen an old woman who dresses kind of oddly down there?
yeah.
Okay,
There's
good.
a woman used to be in Hollywood that she reads tarot cards and things.
Oh, wow.
She really dresses up like from the 1930s or
Right,
something.
right. And odd too, like she has jammies on underneath a coat and gloves on, and it's not even cold yet. It's like, what in the world? It's like very strange, but very rich looking at the same time. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
you never know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like she's not really human. I felt like she was not. I felt like she was angelic.
Have you had any more encounters with Saint Germain recently or in the last year or so that you know?
Well, not like that. He seems to come more subtly most of the time,
Yeah.
The last time I saw him in physical body was when he gave me the name of the book. It is what it is, He came up to me on the street and I was coming out of the cafe, and I didn't want to call it that. But he walked past me, turned around, and he just said, "It is what it is." And then he disappeared into thin air.
Wow.
I haven't seen that book. It is what it is.
What's
Yeah,
it
that's
called?
the kind of short stories about my experiences around Mount, they didn't fit into a other book, but I just put them sort of a collection of experiences.
Like the one about the Oh,
I
what
might
what was
have
that?
read it. I might even
Yeah,
have it.
what
I
was
just
that
didn't know
s-
that was the name of it.
What was that special food that you were wanting? Some sort of
He said it
vegetable.
was spinach.
Spinach.
Yeah, he told that story,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. Oh, you did already. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was a neat story too. See, again, people do know your thoughts. And that was real to you, Peter. And I know you, and you don't make up this stuff. And I don't know, it's interesting that people really can know your thoughts. And even in this day and age, I mean, Jesus knew people's thoughts, didn't he? And we're to become like him. And see, the church doesn't want to see that. But we can become spiritual enough that we know things. And especially if you have the gift of knowing, that's a gift. I believe it's a gift. Not that you can't know things whenever God wants you to know things. You could operate in all the gifts, but that's real. And I think that we should be aspiring to be like Jesus, and he knew things. So anyway, that's interesting that that guy knew that you wanted that and gave you that spinach. I think that's just way cool. Really is. What an
I
experience.
think it's a miracle too, that your books just went international. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, what is it? This one, this is volume 2 of my autobiography, Apprentice to the Masters.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was published in Korean in hardback, and it became the #1 bestseller in Korea. It sold over 3,000 copies the first month.
Wow. Peter, why'd you decide to put it in the Korean market?
I didn't decide. Somebody, a Korean, found it, and they decided there are 2 different publishing companies publishing my books in Korea, and they have an online meditation group, a couple of them actually, one in Los Angeles, and then they have a Korean. It just, the Koreans just like lit up when they saw it. Somehow it was what they wanted, it's very touching,
Did some publisher just find out about your book and then just decide to
Yeah.
open up the market? Did he talk to you first before he went and did it? I mean,
Well, yeah, they got my permission,
Got ya.
We have a
It's so
contract.
cool. That is so cool. I mean, can you believe how God works, waiting so long like that
Yeah.
to you really want to make a big difference, and finally,
Yeah.
that's just incredible. I'm really glad for you, Peter.
Thank
Really
you.
am. Really am. I think it's
Well,
fantastic.
it's not me so much. I'm happy that these teachings are going out,
Amen.
affecting people in other countries too. So.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Trying to help everybody that God puts on our path to help, and the more the better, I say. So God opened up that door, and that makes your work very incredibly valuable to a lot of people, because it's going to spread from there forever and ever and ever. So it's never ending. That's what's cool about it. So
Well, you guys are doing such great work too. I'm sure you're affecting a lot of people. So.
well, everybody here is trying to do that. So
Yeah,
we have a good audience tonight.
we're just doing what we can do, like you're doing,
Yeah.
having a little podcast and sharing what we know,
Yeah.
the little bit we know, and sharing experiences and experiential stuff, because that's the real stuff. And but Peter, man, we've really enjoyed having you on, and I'm glad you're around.
Me
I'm
too.
glad you're feeling better.
Me
And
too.
thank you so much for
Okay.
joining us tonight. I don't know if anybody else wants to say a little final word to Peter, but
right.
you can find his books. I think they're on Amazon, aren't they, Peter?
They are on Amazon, and some of them are Kindle and Audible books. And my website is iamteachings.com. It's got hyphens between I am and
I am dash
teachings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
they're
Am
really
Teachings.
powerful books. I love them, and I've probably read 4 of them, but I want that last one that you just wrote. I am the key. What is this? I am the
I
master.
am the key to mastery.
Yeah,
I am
I
the
love
key
that
to
one.
mastery.
I love that one.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Anyway.
no more no thoughts and nobody else. Okay.
Ron,
I
you
just
want
wanna
to
make
say
sure.
anything, Brother
Okay.
Ron? I see Ron's on there. He
Hey.
might have fell asleep.
No, he's gonna chicken out. Okay. That's okay,
Okay.
Ron. We know. We understand.
All right,
Okay,
Peter.
thanks
Good
everybody
seeing
for
you.
being on tonight.
Any
All right.
blessings.
God
Thank
bless you
Thank
too,
Carrie.
Peter. Thank you so much,
Thank you, Linda.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Come back to Mount Shasta.
Well,
We will. We will
Glad you're
soon.
better. Glad you survived. That's crazy. Okay, so
Bye-bye.
good night.
Good night, Peter.